Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for what's being called the Great North American Eclipse of 2024. Why it's being labeled that is because the path of the shadow of the moon will travel across the United States from coast to coast. Now, during this event, all of the United States will experience at least a partial solar eclipse. But the closer you are to the path of totality, the more of the eclipse phenomena you will experience. The path of totality is the part of the eclipse where the moon fully covers the sun. This rare celestial spectacle may be a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event for many of us, as the next solar eclipse is not scheduled to appear across the United States for another 20 years. How old will you be? Hey guys, I'm Jacqueline Adams, nationally STEM certified and NASA teacher leader here in Mobile County, and I'm super excited to be here today to talk all things eclipse with you. We have questions that we'll be answering from some of you about the eclipse, and also we have experts standing by to discuss the effects that the eclipse will have on the earth, the animals, and even the ocean. Eclipses happen every few months, although we may not even be aware that they're happening. So exactly what is an eclipse? This thing that the entire nation is talking about? Did you know that there are different types of eclipses and that an eclipse can occur in the daytime as well as the night? Joining us to tell us all about these types of eclipses and others is Virginia Hall from MGM High School. Thanks for being with us today.
Hello everyone. Today we're having a solar eclipse. And what is a solar eclipse? A solar eclipse is when the moon passes between the sun and the earth and casts a shadow over the earth. This does not occur very often. About 2 times a year we have something called a solar eclipse season. And that is because of the rotation of our planet, and the moon is not on the same plane as the sun and the earth. There are 4 types of eclipses that can occur: a total eclipse, an annular eclipse, a partial eclipse, and a hybrid eclipse. A total eclipse is when the moon completely blocks out the sun and the only thing you see is the corona, which is the sun's outer atmosphere. Annular eclipse is when the moon passes in front of the sun, but it's at its furthest point from the earth, called an apogee, and therefore it doesn't cover completely the sun, and you see the solar ring around the outside of the moon. The third one is a partial eclipse, when you're not in the path of totality, and so you will see a crescent, and that is what happened in October. We also have a rare one called a hybrid eclipse, and it occurs because the earth is curved, and in the path of totality it can switch to an annular eclipse and then back to a total eclipse in the same eclipse period. How does an eclipse relate to what the students are learning in class? The students learn about the layers of the sun in class, specifically the sun's outermost layer, which is called the corona. This provides insights into the sun's magnetic field, its temperature, and its activity, which can affect Earth's climate and its technology. The students also learn about the moon and its apogee, which is the farthest point, and its perigee, which is the closest point, which can predict whether it will be a total or an annular eclipse. Thank you for listening. That is the information we have today, and I hope that was very helpful for you.
As we just saw, a solar eclipse will occur somewhere on our planet between 2 and 5 times a year. So we know that the moon orbits the earth, right? So why doesn't a solar eclipse occur every month? To answer that question, we visited the University of South Alabama and talked to their head of physics department, Justin Sanders. And we asked him to explain why we don't have a solar eclipse with every new moon.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Justin Sanders from the Department of Physics at the University of South Alabama. And I'm going to tell you about solar eclipses. And in particular, I want to tell you about why it is that we don't have a solar eclipse every month. So I have a little demonstration here. The yellow ball is the sun, and here's the earth, and this little white ball here is the moon. And so as the earth orbits around the sun, the moon is going to orbit around the earth, and so we'll get this behavior here. Okay, so the earth is going around the sun, and the moon is going around the earth as it orbits the sun. And you'll notice that periodically the moon, boom, gets between the earth and the sun. And when that happens, the moon would cast a shadow on the Earth, and that's when we get our solar eclipse. Now, the question then is, well, if the moon is going around the Earth once a month, why doesn't this happen once a month? And the reason is because the moon doesn't go in exactly this level way that it is. It's actually tilted like so that the moon actually goes like this. I have a little demonstration like this. So here is showing, imagine this white styrofoam ball is the Earth, and of course here's the sun, and this yellow plate is the level of the Earth's orbit around the sun. And so as the Earth goes around the sun, you'll just see that it's going to go to all points around this yellow disk. The blue disk is showing how the moon's orbit is tilted. So the moon orbits around the Earth up and sometimes down below like this. If we have a new moon, so that the moon is generally between the Earth and the sun, if it has a new moon at this point, so the moon is in this position, it would be exactly between the Earth and the sun, and we would get an eclipse. Where again, the moon is below the Earth and the sun, and so again, the shadow of the moon misses the Earth. So it's only when you have a full moon and this line is pointing at the sun that you actually have an eclipse. And that doesn't happen all the time. You have to have just the right timing for this line to be pointing toward the sun and for you to have a new moon at the same time.
Yes, it's true. Other planets in our solar system also have eclipses. Earth is not the only planet in our solar system that has planetary or natural satellites called moons orbiting it. According to NASA scientists, there are 293 moons orbiting planets within our solar system. And while Mercury and Venus have no moons, there are other planets like Saturn that has as many as 146 moons. With this many moons orbiting their respective planets here, there are bound to be other eclipses happening in the cosmos. So let's take a look at our solar system and see what moons are associated with what planets.
Our moon isn't the only moon. No matter where you are on Earth, you can usually look up into the night sky and see the moon. Our moon appears so big and bright because it's closer to Earth than any other planet or moon. But our moon isn't the only moon out there. That's right. In fact, some planets have a lot of moons. A moon is a natural object that orbits anything larger than itself. Moons come in many shapes and sizes. Our solar system has 8 planets and dozens of moons. Almost every planet has them. Mercury and Venus, the 2 planets closest to the Sun, have no moons at all. Earth, on the other hand, has one rocky and rather large moon. It's about 1/4 the size of Earth. Our moon is the only other place in our solar system where humans have set foot. What are some of the other interesting moons we know about? Well, Mars has 2 moons named Phobos and Deimos. They're dark and lumpy and at least 100 times smaller than Earth's moon. Jupiter has more than 70 moons. Several of them have very unusual features. For example, Ganymede is the largest known moon in our solar system. You can actually see it from Earth with just a pair of binoculars. Jupiter's moon Io is covered in volcanoes, and there's thought to be a giant saltwater ocean under the icy surface of Jupiter's moon Europa. NASA is planning a future mission to investigate Europa and its underground ocean. Saturn has more than 80 moons in total, and at least 2 of those are ocean moons too. They are called Titan and Enceladus. NASA's Cassini mission discovered that the underground ocean on Enceladus shoots jets of icy particles from cracks in the moon's surface and out into space. Uranus has more than 20 moons. Its larger moons, like this one named Ariel, are thought to be made up of half water ice and half rock. Scientists have discovered more than a dozen moons orbiting Neptune. Its largest moon, called Triton, has volcanoes with icy lava flows. Brr! Volcanoes, underground oceans, and icy jets. What do you think we'll discover on moons next?
Now, NASA scientists have documented more than 470 smaller moons orbiting smaller objects such as asteroids. And with each trip into space, there are even more moons being discovered. And they say that there are possibly thousands more smaller moons orbiting asteroids and planets within our solar system. Solar eclipses have always been a rare event, and for centuries people have always looked to the skies whenever a solar eclipse is happening. The entire event will last only a few hours and only about 4 minutes in totality for a specific location. But one thing we have learned is if you don't have the proper eye protection, you can permanently damage or scar your eyes. Remember, you should never look directly at the sun. So exactly how are you supposed to view the eclipse? To answer that question, Laura Hollins from Blount High School is here to help us out. Hey Laura.
Hi guys. So as we know, the huge solar eclipse is happening today, and we're so excited to see the sun, right? We're so excited to see the things that science can do. So I'm here today to talk to you about a couple of ways to keep your eyes safe and also what not to do. So you may be thinking that, well, what if I look at the sun through my cell phone lens? Like if I record a video, I can view the sun, right? I'm holding it in front of my face. It'll protect my eyes. Well, today, that just won't do. Well, what if you found some cool binoculars at your house? I mean, these are in front of my face. They keep my eyes covered. So can I view the sun through these binoculars? Well, you can, but that can cause eye damage. Well, what about if I put on my shades? The shades protect me from the sun, right? I wear them when I'm outside. I wear them at the beach. I mean, they provide coverage. Nope. You can't look directly at the sun with your shades on. So those will have to be worn another time, not today. Well, today, you should wear your solar eclipse glasses. These glasses provide so much protection from the sun. You can look directly at the sun and it won't cause any damage to your eyes. They're thousands of times darker than your regular everyday shades, and they provide so much more protection than your cell phone lens or your binoculars. These are the best options to view the solar eclipse today. Well, what happens if you're not wearing your glasses and you just look directly at the sun? You can cause so much damage to your eye cells that it can result in vision loss, blindness, or even distortion. You'll be looking around for the next 3 to 6 months and seeing small circles. You can even cause permanent eye damage. And of course, you don't want that to happen. You want to be able to view the next solar eclipse, right? So remember that today, protect your eyes, see the sun, and see the solar eclipse.
Thanks, Laura. And now, since we know how to safely view the solar eclipse, let's take a look at some of the best places to see it. This year's path of totality, meaning places where people will see a total blockage of the sun, is about 110 miles wide. The eclipse will start in the Pacific Ocean and then cross into Mexico, passing into the United States across 13 states, and then the southeastern part of Canada and ending in the Atlantic Ocean. Those cities that are closer to the center of the path will experience total darkness longer than those on the outer edges. Now, everyone in the United States will be able to view some portion of the eclipse. Here in Mobile, we can expect to see 79 to 80% of the sun being covered by the moon. When an eclipse blocks out the sun, it affects the weather. At its peak, you're going to notice the temperature drop slightly. But there are other changes that take place during a solar eclipse as well. And Tracy J. from the Environmental Study Center is here to tell us more about that. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. So when we look at the effects of an eclipse on the Earth itself, the first thing scientists look at is that decrease in solar radiation. So when the sun is got that ultimate photobomb, when the moon gets in front of the sun, it blocks that sun and it causes a decrease in solar radiation. This causes a cooling in the upper atmosphere, specifically in the area of the upper atmosphere known as the ionosphere. In this ionosphere, you have charged particles that are bouncing around, and they are basically responsible for transmitting, reflecting, and refracting waves, particularly those radio waves. And in areas of totality, this can cause problems with your satellite navigation or maybe even communications. And this is important for scientists to study and to understand. Also, like you mentioned, this lack of solar radiation or this slowing down of solar radiation can also cause changes in the weather. There was one study in India back in an eclipse of 2020 that showed that one area of totality lost up to 10 degrees. It cooled off even that much during that eclipse. And that's important because it can cause changes, like you said, in the weather, wind speeds, problems with turbulence, airplanes, things of that nature. And then finally, we want to look at our plants. Since plants are so dependent on that solar radiation, when the solar radiation slows down or is taken away, then the plants tend to sort of go to sleep, so to speak, especially in those areas of totality. Photosynthesis starts to slow down. Maybe those plants that tend to furl their leaves at night will curl up and act like they're getting ready to go to sleep, so to speak, at night. And so you will find those things happening. Now, of course, this isn't going to last very long because that area of totality, that only lasts about 4 minutes. But those are important 4 minutes for scientists all across our country. And I can guarantee you on that day, there will be so many studies going on trying to study the effects of these eclipses. What an exciting time to be a scientist, a science teacher, and a student of science.
Great. Thank you, Tracy, for that great information about the eclipse. Okay, guys, if you have pets, you may want to pay attention to this next segment. The question was asked, what effects does a solar eclipse have on animals? Well, scientists who have been studying this area of research state that no evidence that humans or animals are affected physically by an eclipse. In years past, researchers have observed unusual animal behavior at zoos around the world during total solar eclipses. So we decided to check it out for ourselves and sent reporter Garrett Phillips out to the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo over in Gulf Shores to ask the animal experts.
I'm here at the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo aviation exhibit with
Joel Hamilton. I'm the executive director here at the zoo.
My first question is, what do you do as the executive director at the zoo?
I oversee the daily operations of the zoo.
What exactly are the daily operations?
Oh, we've got several different departments, so it depends on which department you're talking about. Of course, we have animal care department that takes care of all these wonderful animals, but we have guest services, you know, the folks who run the gift shop and take tickets, and we have marketing, and we have folks that raise money for us so that we can keep operating. We have all kinds of people that work here at the zoo.
What species are most affected by the solar eclipse?
Well, they all are affected, but it seems like birds are often affected the most because they have special things that they do in the evening, going to find their roosts and all that. They'll get chattery, and all of a sudden during the eclipse they get very, very quiet. And you can even see that, notice that if you're out in the woods or you have birds in your backyard or in your city park or whatever, you'll notice that all the birds get very, very quiet during the center of the eclipse.
Are there any particular bird species that are affected more than the other birds?
No, not really. Not any specific individual species that we would have here, but you might see, you know, the songbirds around Mobile, for instance, might get quiet. But you also might see owls come out. So you never know. It depends on how much of that total eclipse is in your particular area, because some areas get a partial eclipse. And so it's going to depend on how dark it actually gets.
Does the darkness confuse the animals?
Yeah, it does confuse them a little bit because they think that, okay, nighttime is here, and they start getting prepared for that nighttime, and then all of a sudden it starts daylight again. So it does provide a little bit of confusion for the animals, but they're just following what their normal cycle is. It's just a very short night for them.
What happens with the dogs and cats during the solar eclipse?
Do you have a dog or a cat at home?
Yeah, I have a dog.
Yeah, and he's probably never done this, but what does your dog do at night?
Sleep.
Well, your dog might go to try to find its bed to go to sleep during a solar eclipse. So they're like any of the other animals that we have here at the zoo. They depend on that light cycle each day, and they've got a activity pattern based on that life cycle, or light cycle. So like your dog at night wants to go to bed, these animals do the same thing, but anybody's dogs or cats may do the normal behavior that they would do in the evening or early nighttime.
What happens with the lions, tigers, and bears at the zoo? How are they affected?
Well, they're going to be affected like any of the other animals in thinking that it's nighttime, but they're probably also going to be thinking that, oh, it's time to eat. And it may not be time for them to eat. They get fed at the end of the day of our animal care staff's day, and the occurrence of the eclipse might not coincide with that time. So they might be thinking they're going to get fed and get ready for the evening, but they'll wake back up again once the solar eclipse is over.
Thank you for coming out and speaking with us.
You are quite welcome, and thank you for coming here today, and tell all your friends to come visit the zoo.
Wow, Garrett, that looked like fun. When it comes to the plants, the sun plays a very big role in its life cycle. After all, the sun is a plant's primary source of food. So, does a solar eclipse have any effect on them? Also, what about marine life and our waterways? We do know that the gravitational pull that the moon has on the Earth affects our high and low tides. And now we're joined by Angel Jackson to answer these questions.
Hi everyone. What effect does the solar eclipse have on marine life? Well, from what I've learned is that when that solar eclipse takes place and things get dark, those animals that are more active during the daytime will actually go into hiding. So the fish will hide so that way predators won't come out and attack them. And those predators that are usually sleeping during the daytime will awake and come to the surface or close to the surface to see what they can find. Then again, when the sun comes back out again, when the eclipse is starting to end, things transform. Well, the animals that are trying to hide, that are more active during the day, will actually just come back out into their normal homes, and those predators will go back to sleep.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. How is it possible for scientists to predict when the next solar eclipse will happen? The ancient Mayans, Babylonians, and Chinese civilizations have observed and studied solar eclipses for many years, leaving scientists some very great information. And it's only been within the last 300 years that astronomers have been able to predict solar eclipses accurately. But we now have computers and software that can predict the path, the day, and the time of a solar eclipse for the next 1,000 years. And for future reference, our area here in Mobile, Alabama will experience a total solar eclipse on May 11th, 2078. So there you have it. We have discussed all things eclipse with you today, but there is still one question to be answered. Why is it important to know all of this? And we've asked Dr. Melody Tucker, the Mobile County Public Schools Science Supervisor, to answer this question for us.
The first reason is because it's part of the curriculum that they learn. Our students follow the Alabama Course of Study for Science, and in elementary school, they learn just about the basic relationship of the sun, the moon, and the earth. In middle school, all of our students in 6th grade take earth science. Now, this is where they learn about what an eclipse is. And in high school, our students have the opportunity to take earth science as an elective, and they will be able to take a deeper dive into the eclipse. Not only is it part of their curriculum, it is a wonderful phenomenon, which is taking what they learn in class and relating it to a real life situation. This will be one of the few opportunities that students will be able to experience a total solar eclipse. Different ways that they can experience it is watching the live stream of it inside the classroom. The teacher can do activities with them where they're just learning about the solar eclipse and how it happens. No matter what way they are able to experience it, They are getting a real life situation that they have learned in class.
Well, that's going to wrap things up for us today, and we appreciate you joining us for our adventure as we learned about the great North American eclipse of 2024. And remember, when it comes to science, stay curious.